Hey, welcome. Have you ever wondered how psychologists figure out what's really going on inside our heads? You know, how they go from just a hunch about why we do things to an actual scientific fact? Well, I'll tell you, they definitely don't just guess. Today, we're going to open up the Psychologist Toolkit and see the exact methods they use to study the mind. And we'll start with a question you've probably asked yourself. So think about this. Does staring at our screens all day actually make us less happy? I mean, it kind of feels like it sometimes, right? But how could a scientist prove that? That's the exact kind of puzzle psychologists tackle. And finding the answer isn't about just asking people what they think. It's about having a solid scientific plan. And that plan, well, it all comes down to their toolkit. See, just like a carpenter needs more than just a hammer, a psychologist needs a whole range of research methods. Each tool is designed for a very specific job, a different kind of question, to make sure they're investigating our minds in a way that's systematic and, actually scientific. All right, so the first tool we're pulling out is the big one. It's the most powerful tool in the kit, the experiment. If you absolutely need to know if one thing causes another thing to happen, this is the gold standard. So let's see how it works. So what is it that makes an experiment so special? It really boils down to one key action. The researcher manipulates something. They actively go in and change one specific variable on purpose, just to see what happens. This is how they can really hunt for that direct link between a cause and its effect. Let's make this real. Imagine we create a new well-being app. To test if it actually works, we'd run an experiment. We'd have one group, the experimental group, use the app for 30 minutes every day, and then we'd have a control group that just goes about their normal life, no app. The key is everything else about these two groups is kept the same, so the only real difference between them is the app. And that's the magic right there. By measuring the happiness of both groups, if the group using the app is way happier at the end, we can be super confident that the app was the cause. That's the unique power of an experiment. You isolate that one single variable to see if it's really causing the change. But look, you can't always lock people in a lab for an experiment. Sometimes you just need to see how people act out in the real world, in their natural habitat. For that, we turn to the next tool, the observational study. The whole idea here is to watch people in their natural setting, but, and this is crucial, without interfering. The researcher basically becomes a fly on the wall. Think of them like a wildlife documentarian, but instead of filming lions on the savannah, they're watching humans at a coffee shop, just watching and recording. So going back to our screen time question, a psychologist might just sit in a cafe and take notes. How long are people actually looking at their phones? Are they smiling at the screen, or do they look kind of stressed out? Are they with someone else but totally ignoring them for their phone? They're just gathering data on what's really happening. And the huge win here is authenticity. When people have no idea they're being watched, they act naturally. So this method gives us a fantastic, unfiltered snapshot of what real-world human behavior actually looks like. Okay, so watching a few dozen people gives you some great detailed info. But what if you need to know what thousands or even tens of thousands of people are thinking? Well, that's when you pull out the third tool from the kit, the survey. You can think of a survey as a really organized conversation, but on a massive scale. Researchers use questionnaires to get what's called self-report data. That's just a fancy way of saying they're asking people to tell them directly about their own thoughts, feelings, or what they do. And the real power of the survey is its incredible scale. I mean, you can't really run an experiment on 10,000 people, but you can absolutely send them a survey. This lets psychologists spot these really broad patterns and trends across a huge population. And what you get back is data that looks something like this. From just one question, you can get a super clear visual snapshot of what a huge group of people believe. We can see it in a second, how people feel about their screen time and how it impacts their mood. So yeah, when it comes to surveys, the name of the game is speed and scale. If you need a ton of data from a ton of people and you need it fast, the survey is absolutely the right tool for the job. All right, we've gone from the super controlled lab to people watching in the wild, then to asking the masses. Now, for our last tool, we're going to zoom all the way in, focusing on just one single person, with the case study. A case study is basically the polar opposite of a survey. Instead of going broad, it goes incredibly deep. It's a really intensive, detailed investigation that can sometimes take months or even years, and it's all focused on just one subject. And this is the kind of amazing insight you can get from that.
You don't get a chart or a statistic. You get a rich, personal story. A quote like this gives you a kind of emotional detail and context that a multiple choice question on a survey could just never, ever capture.
So case studies are perfect when you're exploring something really rare or unique. Now, they won't prove cause and effect like an experiment, but what they're brilliant at is generating incredible insights and brand new ideas that researchers can then go and test with other methods.
Okay, so we've got our 4 main tools: the experiment, the observational study, the survey, and the case study. So how on earth do psychologists know which one to pick? Well, it's actually pretty simple. The question you're asking tells you which tool you need to use.
And it really breaks down just like this. If your main goal is to find out if A causes B, you need an experiment for its high control. If you just want to describe how people really behave, you use observation for its high realism. If you need to gather data from tons of people, you use a survey for its high scale. And if you want to understand one unique situation in incredible depth, you choose a case study for its high detail. Every tool has its own superpower. And when you put them all together, these methods are what make psychology a real science. They allow researchers to go beyond just gut feelings or common sense, and they ensure that what we learn about the human mind is built on a solid foundation of systematic and ethical evidence.
So what does all this mean for you? Well, the next time you're scrolling and you see one of those headlines that makes a big claim about how we think or feel, you now have the power to think like a scientist. And there's one really important question you should always ask yourself first. How did they find that out? Was it a controlled experiment with 2 groups? A huge survey of thousands? Or was it an in-depth case study of just one person? Understanding the tool they used is the very first step to figuring out if what they're claiming is actually worth believing. Thanks for tuning in.